It is all my fault. I caused this for myself. I should have known something was wrong the moment I pulled into the driveway. The house stood alone, swallowed by the vast Texas landscape, surrounded by thick clusters of trees that stretched out like arms, reaching toward the sky. The road leading to it had been nothing but dirt for miles, the kind of place that didn't just feel remote, it felt forgotten. I had booked this Airbnb on a whim. I needed to get away to clear my head. Work had been relentless, and the city had started to feel like a weight pressing down on my chest. I wanted silence, isolation, a place where no one could bother me. This place had seemed perfect. A small, rustic home on the edge of a dense forest, promising total privacy and an off-the-grid experience. The pictures had shown a cozy interior, warm lighting, a stocked kitchen, and a backyard that stretched into the trees. It looked peaceful. Now, standing in front of it, I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't. The house was just like the photos on the surface, but there was something about it that felt off. The way the windows seemed too dark, like they weren't just reflecting the late afternoon sun but absorbing it. The way the trees crowded too close, as if they were pressing in. The way the air felt too heavy, thick with something I couldn't name. I hesitated before stepping out of my car. The house was old, but well kept. A narrow front porch wrapped around the side, the paint on the railing slightly chipped. A wind chime swayed lazily from a hook, but there was no wind. I checked my phone. No service. That was expected, part of the charm I had told myself when booking it. A few days without emails or messages. Just me, my thoughts, and this house in the middle of nowhere. I walked up the porch steps, the wood creaking under my weight. The key had been left in a lockbox beside the door, just like the host's message had said. I hesitated before unlocking the door. For a moment, I had the strange sense that someone had just been inside. The air still carried the faintest trace of warmth, the way a room does when someone has just left it. I shook the feeling off and stepped inside. The house was quiet, too quiet. Everything was as pictured. The cozy furniture, the fully stocked kitchen, the large bedroom with an old wooden bed. There was even a small welcome basket on the counter with a note from the host. "Welcome. Hope you enjoy your stay. Text if you need anything." The handwriting was neat, formal. I set my bag down and walked through the house. The floorboards groaned softly beneath my steps, the kind of sound that should have felt familiar in an old home but instead felt unsettling. Something about this place felt like it had been waiting. I shook the thought off. I was overthinking. I unpacked, made some tea, and sat on the couch, letting the stillness settle around me. I had come here for peace after all. Then I saw it. The house rules. A small framed list hanging beside the fridge. 1. Do not open the basement door. 2. If you hear knocking after midnight, do not answer. 3. Leave before Sunday night. I read them again. A chill crawled up my spine. It had to be a joke. Some kind of gimmick to make the place seem more mysterious, more intriguing. A lot of Airbnbs did that, didn't they? Still, something about those rules bothered me, especially the last one. I tried to shake it off. I wasn't staying until Sunday. I had planned to leave Saturday morning. It didn't matter. The first night passed quietly. Almost. I woke up at 3 a.m. to the sound of my phone vibrating against the nightstand. I sat up, groggy, rubbing my eyes before reaching for it. A notification from the Airbnb app. I frowned. The host? At this hour? I clicked the message. You're not alone in the house. Leave now. My stomach dropped. The air shifted. I turned my head toward the bedroom door. It was open, but I had locked it before bed. A cold prickle ran down my spine. I forced myself to get up, stepping carefully onto the wooden floor. My breath felt too loud in the silence. The house was too still. I peeked into the hallway. Nothing. The living room was empty. The kitchen was untouched. The windows were shut and locked. But something felt wrong. I checked the front door. It was still bolted. I checked the back door. Locked. I checked the windows. Sealed. No one was in the house. No one should have been in the house. So why did I feel like someone was? The message sat on my phone screen, glowing in the dark. You're not alone in the house. Leave now. I typed back, my hands shaking. Who is this? The dots appeared. Someone was typing. Then the response. You should have read the rules. A soft creak came from behind me. I turned, my heart hammering. The basement door was open. I hadn't touched it. Had I? I stared. My breath caught in my throat. The door hung slightly ajar, leading down into pitch-black darkness. The air was colder there, like something was waiting just beyond the threshold. The house felt different now. No longer still. No longer empty. I swallowed hard. Then the phone buzzed again. One last message. Don't go downstairs. And then the knocking started. I stood frozen, my eyes locked on the basement door. It hadn't been opened before. I knew that. I had walked through the house when I arrived, checking every room, every door. That one had been closed, locked. Now it stood slightly ajar, revealing nothing but thick, consuming darkness. The air near the opening was different, colder, heavier, like the space beyond wasn't just another part of the house, like it was something else entirely. The knocking came again, not from the front door, not from the back, from beneath me, the basement, a slow, deliberate rhythm, like someone was knocking from the other side of the door leading down. I took a step back, my pulse hammering in my ears. I glanced at my phone, the screen still glowing with the last message. Don't go downstairs. The logical part of me said to listen. Leave it alone. Lock the door. Go back to bed. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something, was down there. I swallowed hard and forced myself to move closer. With slow, careful steps, I reached the basement door. My fingers hovered over the edge, ready to push it shut. Then the knocking stopped. The silence was worse. Something was down there, waiting, listening. I pressed my hand against the door, preparing to close it, and then I felt it. The air shifted. Presence. Right on the other side. Not knocking anymore. Standing. I backed away, heart racing. The phone buzzed again. A new message. It knows you're here now. A breath caught in my throat. I looked back at the basement door, still slightly open, still revealing nothing but darkness. Then the door began to open wider. Not fast, not all at once. Slowly, deliberately, like someone or something was pushing it from the other side. I turned and ran. I didn't stop until I reached the bedroom, slamming the door behind me. My hands shook as I locked it, pressing my back against the wood. The room felt too quiet, the kind of silence that made every creak of the house sound deafening. I stood there waiting, listening. Nothing. No footsteps. No movement. But I knew better. Something was in the house. I grabbed my phone again, my hands unsteady as I typed. Who is this? What's in the house? The response came instantly. Not what. Who? I stared at the screen, my pulse hammering in my chest. Then, another message. Check the cameras. I hesitated. I hadn't seen any cameras when I arrived. But something about the message sent a cold chill through me. Slowly, I exited the Airbnb app and opened my phone's camera roll. And that's when I saw it. A new folder. One I hadn't created. It was labeled Guest Recordings. My stomach turned. I tapped it open. There were videos inside. Dozens of them. And the worst part? They weren't old. They had been recorded tonight. I tapped on the most recent file, my fingers trembling. The video started in black and white like footage from a security camera. It was the living room. My heart pounded as I watched. For the first few seconds, the room was still. Empty. Nothing out of the ordinary. Then, movement. A figure entered the frame. At first, I thought it was me. Same height, same build. But then it turned its head toward the camera. And I realized it wasn't me. The face was wrong. Blurry, indistinct, as if the features weren't fully formed. The figure stood there, unmoving, facing the camera, watching. Then it tilted its head, as if it knew I was watching, too. A message appeared on the screen. You shouldn't have looked. The video ended. I sat there, my breath coming fast, my hands cold. This wasn't possible. The Airbnb listing had never mentioned security cameras. I checked the second video. This one was from the hallway. I hit play. It started with nothing. Just an empty corridor, stretching toward the basement door. Then, the door opened. The same figure stepped out. Slowly, deliberately. It stood there, unmoving, in the dim light. And then, it turned its head, directly toward my bedroom door. I stopped the video. My blood ran cold. The timestamp showed it had been recorded 20 minutes ago. That was before I had even come back to the room, before I had locked the door. I covered my mouth with my hand, swallowing down the panic rising in my chest. I needed to get out of here, but something told me I wasn't going to be allowed to leave. Then, a new notification. Not a text, a live feed, the security camera, and it was showing the hallway. Outside my door, something was standing there, not moving, just waiting. And then, the doorknob began to turn. The doorknob twisted. I held my breath, pressing myself against the wall beside the door. My hands were clammy, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Whoever or whatever was on the other side wasn't knocking this time. It was trying to get in. The knob rattled harder now, like someone was testing how much resistance it had, trying to gauge whether I had locked it. I prayed that was enough. The live feed on my phone screen flickered, but the figure remained right outside the door. It wasn't moving, just standing there staring. I couldn't see its face clearly, but I didn't need to. I already knew it wasn't human. Something felt wrong about its presence, like the space around it bent, distorted in a way I couldn't fully understand. The doorknob stopped turning. Silence. The stillness was worse. Then the phone buzzed. A message from the Airbnb host. You need to leave. Now. I almost laughed. It was too late for that. I tried to leave. The doors wouldn't open. The windows wouldn't break. I was trapped. I hesitated before typing back, my hands shaking. I can't. The doors won't open. Who is in the house with me? The dots appeared. The host was typing. I watched the screen, my pulse racing, waiting. Then, a new message. Not who. How many? I barely had time to process what that meant before the first knock came from inside the room. I whirled around, my breath catching in my throat. The closet. It was closed, but something had knocked from the other side. The weight of the air shifted. Something was in there. I took a slow step back, my mind screaming at me to not open it. Then another knock, softer this time. Like whatever was inside wanted me to come closer. A metallic taste filled my mouth. Fear. The phone buzzed again. Another message. Don't open it. My hands trembled. I didn't plan to. I turned back toward the door, gripping the handle. If I was going to get out of here, I had to try again. But as I twisted it, trying to force it open, a whisper came. Not from the hallway. Not from the closet. From right behind me. They already know you're here. I spun around. The closet door was open. I didn't see what was inside. I didn't want to. I ran. I slammed into the bedroom door with my full weight, throwing it open into the hallway. It was empty, but something felt off. Like the walls were breathing. Like the air was watching me. I sprinted down the hallway, toward the front door. I grabbed the knob, twisting, yanking, nothing. Still locked. I turned toward the kitchen. There had to be something, a knife, a hammer, anything I could use to break a window. But then I saw it. The dining table. Something was different. The papers that had been neatly stacked there before were gone. And in their place, Polaroid photo. Face down. I swallowed hard. I didn't want to turn it over, but I had to. With shaking fingers, I reached out and flipped the picture over. My breath caught in my throat. It was me, standing in the hallway, taken from inside the closet. My hands shook as I backed away from the table, the Polaroid slipping from my grip. I had felt like someone had been watching me since I got here. Now I had proof. The phone buzzed again. A new message from the host. "Did you find the basement yet?" My stomach turned. I typed back, my fingers barely functioning. "I'm not going down there." The response came immediately. "You don't have a choice." The lights flickered. The air in the house shifted, colder now. I felt something behind me. Not close, not touching, just waiting. The basement door stood wide open now. I never heard it move, never saw it open, but there it was. I took a step back, my throat dry. Then, another message. "It's already coming up." The first step creaked. Something was coming up the basement stairs. Slow, deliberate. A shape emerged from the darkness. Not running, not hiding, just walking straight toward me. The shape at the top of the basement stairs stood motionless. I couldn't see its face. The shadows clung to it like smoke, curling around its frame, refusing to let me see what it really was. But it was looking at me. I could feel its gaze, heavy and unnatural, pressing into me like a physical weight. I took a slow step back, my heart hammering. The floorboards beneath me groaned, the sound stretching out in the silence. The thing in the basement stepped forward. Not fast, not sudden, deliberate, like it wasn't in a hurry, like it knew I had nowhere to go. The door behind me was still locked, the windows unbreakable. I had tried everything. I wasn't supposed to leave. The phone buzzed in my hand. I didn't want to look, but I did. A new message from the host. "Now you understand." My hands trembled as I typed back. "Understand what?" The dots appeared. They were taking their time, like they were enjoying this. Then the response came. "This house isn't a rental. It's a cage." A chill crawled up my spine. The basement creaked again. The thing took another step. I was running out of time. I forced myself to move. I grabbed the nearest chair from the kitchen table, dragging it in front of me like a weak shield. The thing stopped. It didn't react like a person would. Didn't flinch. Didn't hesitate. Just stood there, watching. I clenched my jaw. If I couldn't escape, I needed answers. "What do you want?" I forced the words out, barely recognizing my own voice. The thing tilted its head. Then, without a sound, pointed at the table. I hesitated. Slowly, I turned my head. The Polaroid photo was still there, the one I had dropped. But something was different now. There were more pictures, dozens of them, all taken inside this house, all showing different people. Some were sleeping. Some were standing in front of mirrors, unaware that something was behind them. Some were missing their faces. The phone buzzed again. I barely glanced at it before reading the words. "Look at the names." My hands shook as I reached for the stack of photos. On the back of each one, a name was written. I recognized none of them until I reached the last one. I turned it over, my breath caught in my throat. It was a picture of me, standing in the hallway, taken from the basement, and on the back in small, neat handwriting, my full name, with today's date. I dropped the photos, my breath coming fast. I wasn't the first. This had happened before, and if I didn't figure out how to stop it, I wouldn't be the last. The thing at the basement door stepped forward again. Closer now. The shape shifted. For the first time, I saw a flicker of features. Not its own. Mine. The phone buzzed. Run. I didn't hesitate. I turned and sprinted down the hallway. The thing didn't chase me. It didn't have to, because as I ran, I heard another sound. The front door, unlocking itself. I skidded to a stop in front of it, my breath ragged. I reached for the handle, twisted. The door swung open. The night air hit my face. I was free. I didn't question it. I ran, across the porch, down the gravel path, toward my car. I yanked the door open, jumping inside, my hands shaking as I jammed the keys into the ignition. The engine roared to life. I didn't look back. Couldn't. I slammed my foot down on the gas. The car lurched forward, and I sped down the dirt road, leaving the house behind. Leaving it behind. At least that's what I thought. The town was miles away, but I didn't stop driving. Not until I saw the first streetlight. Not until I saw another person. I pulled into a gas station, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles ached. My pulse was still racing. I forced myself to breathe. The house was gone. I had made it out. I reached for my phone. No new messages. No notifications. No proof that anything had happened at all. I let out a shaky breath. Then, something in my rearview mirror moved. I froze. Slowly, I turned my head. The back seat was empty. I forced a laugh, rubbing a hand over my face. I was being paranoid. It was over. I had escaped. Then, the phone buzzed. One last time. A notification. Not a message. An Airbnb review request. My stomach turned. Clicked on it, my hands clammy. The page loaded. I expected to see the listing for the house. But there was nothing. The Airbnb was gone. Like it had never existed. And then my phone buzzed again. One final message. You left too soon. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just sat there, watching my reflection in the rearview mirror. Because in the dim glow of my dashboard lights, it was smiling. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. Even after I left the gas station, even after I checked into a cheap motel miles away, the unease sat in my chest like a sickness I couldn't shake. The Airbnb was gone. The listing had vanished. No trace of it remained on the app. I had tried searching my booking history, scrolling through past reservations, anything to prove to myself that I had really been there. But there was nothing. No record of my stay. No proof I had ever been in that house. Except for one thing. I turned my phone over in my hands, staring at the single photo that remained in my camera roll. The Polaroid. The one of me standing in the hallway. The one taken from the basement. I had deleted it. Twice. Kept coming back. I spent the next day driving. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stop moving. But by the time the sun set, I was exhausted. I needed rest. I found another motel, this one just outside of a small town, the kind of place that didn't ask for names or credit cards. The woman at the front desk barely looked up as she handed me my key. Room 108. I locked the door behind me and threw my bag onto the bed. The walls were thin. The room smelled like old carpet and cigarette smoke. But I didn't care. I just needed a few hours of sleep. I climbed into bed, leaving the TV on for background noise. My eyes burned, my body aching with exhaustion. The last thing I saw before I closed my eyes was the glow of my phone screen on the nightstand. The review request notification was still there. I had never clicked on it. I had never rated my stay, and I never would. I reached for the phone, flipping it face down. Then I let sleep take me. I woke up in the Airbnb. I knew immediately. The air was different. The bed was different. The smell of the place wrapped around me. Old wood, dust, something damp beneath it all. I sat up fast, my breath catching in my throat. I wasn't in the motel anymore. I was back. The bedroom door was open, the hallway stretching into darkness. I forced myself to move, throwing the covers off, my pulse hammering as I stumbled out of bed. This wasn't real. Couldn't be real. I ran to the front door, my hands fumbling for the lock, but it wasn't there. No knob, no handle, just a smooth wooden surface, like the door had never been real in the first place. I turned, scanning the room, my stomach twisting. Everything was exactly as I had left it. Even the table. The Polaroids were still there. But now, there were more of them. Hundreds, stacked in piles, covering the tabletop, spilling onto the floor. I reached for one, my fingers shaking. It was a picture of the motel room. Room 108, the bed, the nightstand, and me, asleep. A shadow stood in the corner of the frame, tall and thin, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. The next photo was worse. It was me standing in the motel bathroom, staring at my own reflection. Except my reflection wasn't facing me. It was turned around, looking at something behind me. I dropped the photos, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps. Then the phone buzzed. The screen flickered. A new message. No name, no sender. Just 3 words. Turn around now. I couldn't. I squeezed my eyes shut, my entire body locking up with fear. The air shifted. I felt it move behind me, standing too close, waiting. A whisper, low, right against my ear. You never checked out. I woke up gasping. I was in the motel bed. The sheets were damp with sweat, my heart hammering so hard I thought I might be sick. The room was the same. The motel TV still played softly in the background. The clock on the nightstand blinked 3:15 a.m. I sat up slowly, my hands shaking as I wiped my face. A nightmare. Just a nightmare. Then I noticed the photos. They were sitting on the nightstand, neatly stacked, waiting for me. The phone buzzed. My stomach twisted. I didn't want to look, but I did. A final message. No name, no sender. Just 4 words. Enjoy your extended stay. I left the motel that night. I kept driving. I didn't stop. Didn't check my phone. Didn't look in the mirrors. But even now, days later, I know the Airbnb isn't done with me. The listing is still gone. But sometimes when I check the app, I see a new rental available. No photos, no reviews, just an address, somewhere far away, waiting for its next guest. And I know